All right, in the interest of time, since we have 5 members here, would you all take your seats, please? You lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We do not have a quorum as of yet, but there are some procedural things that we're going to take up first, and the chair recognizes the executive director.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add 2 items to the agenda. The first item, and it will replace the citizens' comment. Since we received no requests for citizens to comment, I would like to introduce the Road Ranger Awards. This is a carryover item from the Operations Committee. The Chairman of Operations felt it was more appropriate to recognize the Road Rangers here at the board meeting. Also, former board member Norman Wortman is here, and he'd like to address the board, and I think it's appropriate during the...
Why don't we do the awards first, and Norman, that way we'll have, I'm sure the rest of the membership will be coming in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll recognize Rick Johnson, who will walk us through the award ceremony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ferre and members of the board. I once again have the honor of presenting the 5th annual Road Ranger Moving Miami-Dade Customer Service Awards. Today we have a representative group of road rangers. The others are out on the road continuing to serve our patrons, as says Florida Highway Patrol, to ensure our roads continue to flow. These folks are the front line of our customer service to our patrons 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Please help me in thanking them for their continued unwavering service.
I just have one question. If they're here, who's out taking care of?
The rest of the team.
So we don't have the full team here.
We have a representative group
Okay.
since we are 24/7.
You
There's
scared
always
me.
somebody working and somebody resting.
You scared me. Would you introduce them and have them step forward, please?
Yes, sir. Road Ranger?
Do we have a camera? We have a photographer, the members of the
We're all
board.
going to do a photo op.
If we'll stand behind the dais, and the road rangers will stand in front of the dais, and we'll
Okay.
take a picture. Well, I can't say enough about the road rangers. I'll tell you, I personally have been helped twice. I don't know, since you all look alike, it looks like bald-headed is in.
I'm not sure if the service causes the baldness or...
Yeah, but you guys all look great, and I'll tell you, you certainly look great when you have a problem. I've had it twice, and one of you helped me, or 2 of you helped me at different times, and you didn't know who I was, but you were courteous, you were quick, you resolved the problems quickly, and it was a great experience and a great satisfaction for me. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to offer you un cafecito. So come forward and get your cafecito.
Get a coffee and...
Yeah, those of you that want a cafecito.
Thank you.
Okay. Felicidades.
Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.
You guys?
Okay.
Gracias.
Okay.
I'm standing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you guys want to stand here, if you stay here so we can take a photograph. And Shelly and Gonzalo. Shelly Gonzalo.
And Norman, would you come up and join us on this, please?
Norman, you want best?
Norman, come.
And why do...
That's it. Shelley, come on in here. And that way we have Gonzalo.
Hold on.
Supervisors and their managers.
And let's get the supervisors
Yeah,
in here,
everyone
too.
here. Yep. Come on, yes, absolutely.
This is
Absolutely.
Savage, the president of the company,
President of the
and Raul, Chris, the supervisors.
You guys do a great job, so we're very grateful. Thank you.
guys.
I'm sorry we didn't give you coffee. All right, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, the chair recognizes Mr. Wortman. Mr. Wortman, would you please step forward? Mr. Norman Wortman is temporarily retiring from MDX, and I'm sure he'll be back. I look forward to his coming back. And I'm going to help him in any way that I can for him to come back, because I don't know of anybody, including Javier Rodriguez and myself, that knows more about transportation than Norman Wortman, and who's been around longer than I think anybody else. Has served, out of the 16 years you've served, how many years?
13 of the 16 years as MDX. I was on the
13
I was
of the
on the
16
study
years.
committee before MDX was created to put it together.
I remember that too.
So
And 13 out of 16 years is an amazing participation. And I think a lot of the things that we have today are due to your overly fertile brain.
you're kind, very kind.
And I want to tell you that we've been lucky to have you for 13 years, and I look forward to having you for more years. We don't have a plaque for you, Norman, today, but because we have a special plaque, and that took a little bit longer for it to be ordered. But it is in order. So
Thanks.
the chair recognizes you.
Thank you very much. Okay, over the past few years, mostly concentrated in the last term and a half I was on, 6 years, but the Road Rangers were in the late 1990s, mid-late. I introduced that in August, coattailed on an FDOT contract, and we had it passed, and by September, they were on the road on the MDX roads. It's one of the, when I first came back again to MDX, it was the glass noise barrier walls on State Road 874, which we had two groups that were fighting each other, and why do barrier walls have to be made out of concrete? Asked the question. Alfred came back a month later, and people were ready to kill each other on either sides of that fight. Okay, the developer of the golf course versus the citizens, they shook hands, and we got on with the project. Okay, the active traffic management policy, getting that implemented. With the help of Deborah Rivera, FDOT, and others, we got that put together and hopefully be implementing parts of it soon. The local preference for bond sales. The last bond sales, 25% of the bond sales went to people who actually are in this county and pay the tolls rather than just sending it up to New York and those people earning the money, and we'll continue that. Keeping with the theme of MDX will not get involved in projects unless they at least break even over time, which will help maintain MDX as a long-term entity for the future. PD&Es, one of the most important things. In this county for years, virtually nothing in any PD&Es of any major significance. Okay, there's a few transit initiatives, but for those cost-feasible ones, we were sitting on the sidelines. And we have the 836 extension PD&E, the busway, 924 extension, 874 extension, all going through that. And more important was getting my colleagues to grasp the concept that when completed, the PD&Es, which take years to complete, that means when there's federal and state funds available, which come available, usually it's a cycle, every 8 to 12 years, less funding, then something happens, and they're available. But they're only available for certain things that are ready and in certain categories. And if you don't have it in the categories available, you're passed by. So we'll be able to come to the table with projects that are ready on the next go-round and maybe have some federal state funds to supplement and make them more cost feasible. So the next things to be done, implementing the motorists, our customers' Bill of Rights, actually getting that. I'd like to see that done. That's been put on hold for a couple of years. So protecting our customers. Implementing many components of the active traffic management policy. Starting some new PD&Es as we finish these and we actually build these would be the starting of those of the Connect 4, State Road 112 extension, 878 extension, US 27 upgrades, Lehman Causeway and others, and US 1 Express Street concepts, different things that we could be looking at in the future, hopefully after our strategic long-range plan. And then actually building the project that are in the PD&Es. That's the real reason that we were here, was talking to each other, putting together a good organization, but building things that people could use. That's the end result, why we were here. Commitment, okay. I took my appointment very seriously. Never missed a meeting in over 6 years on my current term or the 7 years of my original 2 terms. If nothing else, at least they helped us make quorum. So, thank you, thanks. Okay, comments. I'm still involved with transportation issues in South Florida. I serve on CTAC, the MPO, and I'm on the Miami-Dade County Long Range Plan Steering Committee. So, and I intend to stay involved. Okay, recommendations. Okay, remembering why MDX was created, rebuild and improve our existing highways, build new ones, build park and ride lots, mixed-use corridors, and transit guideways that will help make travel in Miami-Dade County at least less miserable for everyone here and promote freight movements, economic development, and thus jobs. Okay, you're here to make the tough and not always popular decisions that are needed to design, finance, build, operate, and maintain the transportation system here. Not always popular, but that's why we're created. Almost done. Okay. Want to focus, you need to focus on the projects that will generate revenue. They will support themselves and thus finance other projects. Do it in the reverse order, everything comes to a screeching halt. Okay, try to expand the private-public partnerships where feasible. And then fight fair, probably the most important thing. Discuss and debate with passion your deeply rooted beliefs, but respect your fellow board members, staff, citizens, the citizens' points of view. Their backgrounds, their education, their experiences may be different from yours, and they see the world differently. Doesn't mean any one group's right or wrong, but that's the American way. Debate, discuss, vote, and get on with life. Okay, it's been an honor and a privilege to have served with you and for our community. Thank you.
As soon as we open up the meeting formally, which we'll do in a moment, I'm going to ask for the secretary to have your statements transcribed and made a part of the minutes so that they're there in perpetuity. So if you would give her the notes, even though you're not a mumbler like me, but sometimes you can't follow things on the transcript. So if you would give Maria Luisa your notes, we'll have it transcribed and you correct it and it'll be part of the minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Would anybody like to say anything other than?
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Norman.
Thank you, Norman.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Evia, Mr. Holland, Mr. Lasarte, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Rodriguez Pina, Mr. Sanabria, Ms. Fano, Ms. Weinberg, Secretary Pago, Treasurer Fernandez Guzman, Vice Chair Gutierrez, Chair Ferre.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Declaration of voting conflicts. Pam?
Members, as we noted at the operations meeting, you have a very extensive agenda. The potential conflicts report is in your agenda. And if any of you need a few extra minutes, let us know. But we want you, if you can, to let us know if you have any voting conflicts in relation to any of the action items on today's agenda.
Are there any conflicts to be declared at this time? If not, we move along, and we have the approval of the summary minutes. There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a second for the discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The summary minutes are approved. Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chairman Frey. Board members, to this month's report, a lot of activity in the last month in the construction side. Central Boulevard, the entrance to the airport, we shifted traffic to the new westbound lanes. Now all construction is occurring in the middle section. It went smoothly. We've met with the airport staff and their new director, and we're addressing all of their concerns and making sure that that airport is open 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The project is approximately 80% complete. It's on schedule and on budget. The 874 widening, work continues on the segment between Kendall Drive and the Palmetto Expressway. We're finalizing the last portion of the project. We're about 80% complete. It's also scheduled to be completed before the end of the calendar year. It is also on schedule and on budget. And I thank the staff and the contractors for working very closely with us in a constrained corridor. The third project I wanted to talk about is the 836 open road tolling conversion. On July 21st, the board knows that we closed cash lanes at the wing at the 17th Avenue Plaza. We worked with the contractor. They gave us an idea. We worked with them to expedite the closing of the cash lanes, which would get us on schedule for go live next year. In preparation for that for that conversion that occurred July 21st, and through the Public Communications Committee, we did a lot of outreach, from handing out flyers at the plaza to doing advertising to sending out information to SunPass customers. I'm very happy to say that the shift occurred without a hitch. We got a lot of coverage. We, in your packets, as was requested by Public Communications, we will start reporting on results. And there's a package in your envelopes that talks about how much media and print we actually placed and paid for, and what we got free. And summarize, 2-to-1. For a $5,000 investment, we got almost $11,000 worth of earned print advertising equivalency. We reached over 700,000 people in that equivalency. We also got a lot of coverage in the media, in the television and radio. With that, we advertised the SunPass giveaway. And we held about 20 dates. I think this is the last week we're doing that portion of the giveaway. But in those 20 dates, we've activated over 1,000 SunPasses. And these are customers that typically paid cash and see the benefits of going to all electronic. They've activated them here at the office. You've seen a lot of them in line. So that's been a tremendous program, and we look to expand it as we get closer to the go-live date next summer. So we will continue the SunPass promotion.
Excuse the interruption. I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in, Mr. Executive Director, of the tremendous cooperation we got, especially from the television stations and from the Miami Herald, which I think it was all positive, it was all upbeat, and I think we got great press. And the results are an amazing testimony to the community, to the team that you've put together, Mr. Executive Director, and to the wonderful cooperation we got from the press.
And to that, Mr. Chair, I wanted to thank the team, who's been led by Mario Diaz and Tere Garcia, the contractors on 836. Extremely cooperative.
All of you that are here, stand up, please,
Contractors on 836, the consultants at the general engineering consultant team. I mean, everybody. It's complicated.
Mario, Tere, the executive people.
Thank you, guys.
And all the construction people.
Anytime you propose change, anytime there's major change, it's difficult because it's hard to change things. And I got to tell you that I've done a lot of maintenance of traffic shifts, and Secretary Pego can attest to this. You have to get the word out. And on 836, a major corridor, that shift occurred without a hitch on that weekend. So I congratulate and applaud them. Moving on the centralized back room, centralized customer service center, the subject expert staff from the 4 agencies completed their work on identifying over 2,000 requirements. These are 4 toll agencies with different business rules, all consolidating into one back room, so there's one bill, one customer service center. Everything will be better for the customer. Those 2,000 requirements have been documented. They're being incorporated into a procurement document. We held an industry forum a month and a half ago. We had over 50 companies show up to the industry forum, many of which were new to the tolling business, but not new to the transaction processing business, and that is very good. Based on the comments that we got from the industry, the procurement is not going to be a regular request for proposals. It's going to be an invitation to negotiate. We will be able to evaluate the best value for the state. Now, one of the key components of this back room is national interoperability, and you've heard me say that over and over again. But the idea is that if you have a transponder, a SunPass transponder, you would be able to drive anywhere in the country and not have to worry about having a transponder from that location. Everything happens in the back room. It's no different than having an AT&T account that you opened in Miami, and you can travel anywhere in the world, and your account manages it.
And you may have noticed in the Miami Herald this morning that your SunPass, your transponder now works in North Carolina.
Correct, and that was the first step of interoperability, was North Carolina. Moving a little bit ahead on my report, this last week we had a conference of the IBTTA, the International Bridge Tunnel and Turnpike Association in Denver. The title of the conference was All Electronic Tolling, Managed Lanes, and Interoperability. The southern states, and I say southern states meaning Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, all met. We all share the same vendor. So we want to become interoperable as a region, and then this region can communicate with EasyPass. EasyPass is the 23 states in the Northeast that share in the interoperable, in the interagency group, the IAG up north. So what we're seeing is we're starting to see a move towards national interoperability, which is what was requested in MAP 21, the federal bill, and they said by 2016 they wanted us to be interoperable. What we did as an industry at IBTTA is we went to Congress, we testified in front of Congress, and we told Congress, don't mandate how to do it. Let industry solve it. When you mandate, it becomes much more difficult, and they trusted us. So the onus is on the industry to make it happen, and we're taking it very serious as industry and as individual states and owners. So that process is moving forward. The invitation to negotiate for the centralized back room will be released later this year. I think it's November, and once it's released, the industry will have 3 months to respond. And the agencies want to award this contract in the spring of 2014, and we want to get portions of it operational by 2015. So it's a very aggressive schedule. Industry recognizes it, but it's not rocket science, so we should be able to accomplish it. So I said that. On July 18th, board members, the MPO approved MDX's fiscal year 2014 to 2018 work program. Now, staff is preparing the procurement documents and scopes to move forward with many of our projects, primarily the 836 projects. So you will be seeing in the fall a lot of those documents coming before us for a request for advertisement and moving forward for implementation on the 836 corridor. Also this month, the Floridians for Better Transportation, Florida Transportation Commission, and Team Florida held its meeting here in Coral Gables at the Biltmore. It was the 25th anniversary of the Floridians for Better Transportation. The focus was moving people and goods. The focus from the Secretary of Transportation was the movement of freight and Florida as a logistics and freight movement center. They highlighted ports. They highlighted the investment in infrastructure. They highlighted the lack of funding available for investments in infrastructure and how it's important to partner with various folks, whether it's in the public or the private sector. So that was the theme of the meeting. I think it was the best attended meeting that's ever been held, and I'm proud to say that it was here in Miami. Just this week, we met with Alex Dominguez, who's the state delegation coordinator, and with Alvaro Muñiz from Commission District 11 to talk about infrastructure projects in the Kendall area. The concern is, what are we doing to address infrastructure deficiencies out west on all fronts? So we discussed the projects that we're working on, the studies that we want to initiate, and then there was a general discussion on tolls on the funding for infrastructure or lack thereof, and what can be done to move certain projects forward. And then finally, as a point of privilege, and I'll turn this over to the chair in a second, but Pam, you know, on behalf of the staff at MDX, every member of the staff, all of our friends at MDX, I need to thank you. I need to thank you for the example you've set, for your professionalism, for the counsel you've given me, not only professionally but personally. Your patience with me, because it's easy to say no. It's hard to say, let me see what I can do to make it a yes. And Pam is excellent at that. But most important, and I speak for the entire staff, is your friendship. And I thank you, and now I'll turn it over to Mr. Ferre because I know that the board wants to recognize you as well, and I'll turn it over to him to do that. And when that's done, I can answer questions from the board.
We're going to take a moment because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a shade meeting after this, and we will probably be in session, Pam, how long, 15, 20 minutes?
We expect it to be 20, no more than 30 minutes. We'll try to keep it to 20.
Breaking in a moment. But at this time, it's my special privilege and honor as chair to recognize Pamela S. Leslie, Esquire. Pam was really chosen by Javier. We, of course, think that we have a lot of power and that the board votes, and we did choose you unanimously, but Javier really was the one that pushed hard. And you know what? His vision was very clear. I've had the privilege, Pam, of working with some of Florida's greatest city, county, and government lawyers. Derry Davis was a legend in Miami-Dade County. John Lloyd, Puffy Rice in the city of Miami. Robert Ginsburg, who was another legend in Miami-Dade County, and Murray Greenberg. George Knox, who I had the privilege as mayor of Miami to appoint. Lucia Dougherty, who I also had the privilege as city of Miami mayor to appoint. Jose Garcia Pedrosa, who later became the city manager for Miami Beach, and others that I'm sure will come to mind after I finish talking, but who are deserving. So I've served with a dozen of the very, very top pros, and I want you to know that I don't think anybody can beat you, those that I mentioned, in integrity, dedication, knowledge, and a complete control of the process, including Robert's rules, by the way, which you claimed that you really didn't.
in that area, sir.
That you didn't know, but you did know, and I think we've all been honored and privileged to serve with you, and to have your wise counsel. We're all of us distressed. We've been looking. Maritza in person has called every member of the day delegation to see what laws we can pass to reverse this thing so that you could stay. But alas, we're not able to do it because the law is the law. And of course, you of all people recognize that. So for your wonderful dedication to the Miami Expressway Authority, and we're all going to go down, and because I think otherwise the picture won't come out the same. And we're going to make this presentation. Maritza, the vice chair, Carlos, the treasurer, and I are jointly going to make this presentation with all of the members who are here today. So would you join me at the front of the dais? And then I'll recognize the rest of you for whatever words you want to say. You're not planning on changing your cell phone, right? No?
Mr. Chairman, that concluded my report. I also wanted to give...
Wait. Does anybody want to say anything else about Pam? Go ahead.
Well, we can't roast you because there's nothing to roast you with, okay? But you've been wonderful. You've been that counsel that we all look forward to speaking to and getting it all fixed and ready to go for us. You're really going to be missed. You know, I'm happy to know that you're not changing your cell phone because you're going to remember our numbers by heart that we keep calling you. And I tell you this, it's only farewell for a moment in time. We're not saying goodbye, and we're not saying forever, and we're not looking to try to fill your position with someone. We're just going to have to get somebody to do the job because we'll never be able to fill the position with a person like you. Thank you very much for all your service, your professionalism, and for the kind of human being and individual that you are. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mayor, if I can, there's just about 3 things that I wanted to
Please.
address in my report, and then we will convene the shade meeting. One of the things I know that the members have asked a lot about our transition, and I just wanted to mention that Javier and I have had a lot of discussions with our outside counsel firm, Weiss Sirota, and Richard Weiss, who's one of the named partners, has agreed to step in and handle a lot of the general counsel duties in the short term until you locate a replacement. And Richard has vast experience representing cities and counties, and I think many of you are personally familiar with him. And so between the work that Francine can fill in doing and what we have kind of laid out for outside counsel to handle, we're very comfortable that there isn't going to be anything that falls through the cracks. So I just want you to all be assured that things will keep rolling along in terms of your representation. The other thing that we've kind of missed our ethics moments, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about, I know you don't, but it's in the bylaws. We've got to do it. But what I really wanted to talk about was our policies. Vice Chair Gutierrez, when you were chair and you did put in this very good process where late summer, early fall, we start looking at our policies. And I want to encourage all of you to do that, and the policies that relate to the committees you sit on, and most particularly the newer members. It's not change just for change's sake, but it's an opportunity to take a look at things to make sure that we can do it, as best as we possibly can. And by having these policies in place, it gives the public a lot of comfort and transparency that what is going to be done at MDX is going to be done in a repeated and consistent manner. And it's one of the most important things that you have and that you do, and it protects everybody, including the public that we serve. And so I ask you to all, take that process to heart, even though I'm not going to be here to do it, and take a look at those. And I just want to say thank you. It's hard to put into words the gratitude that I have for the opportunity that you've given me to serve. It's been an absolute privilege. This is just a wonderful organization. You've made me feel like family, and it was a big jump coming from North Florida to Miami, and it's just been an absolute honor to serve you. And you've put your trust and your confidence in me over and over, and there's nothing more that a lawyer could ask than that, other than maybe a generous fee, and you've been more than generous with me, and so I thank you for that. And I just want to say buena suerte, and again, to echo what the Vice Chair said, we're parting as attorney and client, but not as friends, and if you're ever in Tallahassee, in the capital city, for anything, my home is open. There's lots of bedrooms and a home-cooked meal anytime that you're there, and I look forward
Thank
to
you so
seeing
much. Thank you. All right, we're now going to go into the shade meeting regarding the ETCC litigation, and we hope we'll be back in 20 minutes. So
And we do want to note for the record that the people that will be attending are the board members present, plus attorneys Michael Aaronstein, Joe Sirota, and myself, and Executive Director Rodriguez, so that that's on the record.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah, I think you can do that.
Legal situation, which we had to sift through. We're now,
Mr.
Maritza-
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I apologize, but I have a pressing commitment for a charity for children at 6 o'clock, so I'll stay here as long as I can, but I need to attend that, so
let the
thank
record
you, sir.
reflect.
Thank you.
Maritza, you're up with the MPO, and Maritza has been our MPO representative for 4 years. She's done an exceptionally fine job, and even though sometimes she is very prescient and a little bit combative, but she really put the secretary in his place at the last meeting, and I commend her for her acute awareness of the things that are going on.
Well, no, it's just actually getting the facts on the record so we all know that depending on the money that we're actually paying in our tolls and the turnpike and the upcoming managed lanes, that money is funded back into more projects to Miami-Dade. But it was a very good meeting. The secretary did make a presentation, although there are still more information that is due to the MPO as it relates to the tolls collected on the system and the managed lanes tolls that are collected on the system, and how it reverts back to, has the proper amount of investment been reinvested back into Miami-Dade work program. So that number is still to be defined and given to the MPO, but he did say something that was very important, and it does relate back to us, and the importance of why they're doing managed lanes. It's about capacity, not about the money that they're collecting, and it relates back to what we're doing, that electronic tolling is the means to capacity without having expansion and increasing lanes. So that I wanted to say. No, it's just basically I just wanted to know the information so we know that we're getting all the projects that can fix our system and do it better. And something also very exciting that happened is Irma San Roman was voted in as the now no longer the acting executive director of the MPO, but the executive director of the MPO, which is very, very good and responsive back to the MPO. No longer is Miami-Dade County the conduit to the MPO executives and staff. It is the MPO and executive director that have the unity and working together. So I think things will continue to progress forward. And my last final work to report on the MPO is, the work in progress that has been happening in the Golden Glades. We're all familiar with the work that's being done there. More money was funded in, and additional work will be progressing and making that particular area improve and very useful. And the construction. We need to finish with the construction. And with that, I say, this is my last report. It was my last meeting because I understand there is a new appointment. Time is very valuable. And with that, that's really the reason why I didn't seek reappointment. So thank you. I conclude.
On behalf of all of us, Maritza, let me say that you've represented us well. You've reported back to the board, but what's more important is I think you were, every time you spoke for us, and you did it well, and we're all very grateful for 4 years of service. I know it takes a lot of time And you don't get any pay for it. This is all voluntary work, and we're all very grateful for your service.
Thank you.
All right, we're now on the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Traditionally, in July, we do not have the treasurer's report, and that will be done in August. But what I had asked Marie and others, Randy specifically, to do for us is to go over a little bit of what the impact of the recent rate environment and what we foresee as the future movement in rates is going to do for or against the MDX work program, and how that's going to impact our financials. We've got still opportunities, but they're not opportunities without some level of pain, given the environment where the rates are today and how rapidly they are rising. So, Randy, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
The market has moved in a dramatic fashion since we discussed some of the financing plans that we talked about just a short period ago, and I just wanted to do this quick update just to let you know what has happened so that no one's in for a major surprise when we come back and we start talking about different interest rate environments. Since May 1st, we have seen a dramatic change in interest rates. And it all has to do with the improving economy. The improving economy, and finally, what I call the crack addicts on Wall Street having to be weaned off the incentive programs that the Fed has put in. We alternated between 2.5% and 3% on the 20-year cost of funds for a period of time. What happened was that the Fed started talking about coming off the stimulus program. Just mentioning it caused a fairly good jump. Then when they read the minutes, there was a dramatic change in interest rates. And when I say dramatic, this as a percentage is what we got to look at. As a percentage, we saw in some places on the yield curve 100% increase in rates. Other parts of the yield curve, we saw 60, 70% increase. If we had that any kind of like that on our gas or anything else, we would have went from $3 to $5 to $6 a gallon. This was really dramatic changes. All these different developments came up because we have an improving economy, which means you're going to be seeing higher costs of construction in the same time, so it's a little bit of a double whammy. The third component that hurts us in one of our transactions was what happened right here in July 18th. July 18th is kind of a watershed time for the municipal market because that's when Detroit filed for bankruptcy, and we found out that municipal issuers aren't the riskless transactions that everyone was painting them to be. And we saw Chicago get downgraded 3 whole levels. They went from AA minus to a single A minus in equivalent. And that is a real dramatic change for a municipality that large. Why I'm bringing that up, that one component is going to impact when we take off and reverse the swaps. I ran the swap transactions before that incident and shortly thereafter, and I'll come across why it's more expensive, but it's a little bit more expensive when the credit spreads between our cost of funds and the natural AAA get wider. It gets a little bit more expensive for us, and I wanted you to be aware of that. That moves back and forth. What we get one day, it can come back once the market starts settling down. But there was a knee-jerk reaction, and it cost us over $1 million, close to $2 million, if we were to be in the market on that day to terminate the swap. And we weren't. And it's one of the reasons why I'm talking about it now is so that when we come to this transaction, I will probably be recommending at that time a negotiated transaction. And the reason for that is you don't want to take off a swap and buy bonds where you're subject to market risk. You want to be able to be in the market, make the decisions at the right time in the right place, and that is much more conducive in a negotiated transaction. So I'm kind of prepping the road for that one going forward. This is a little bit better visualization of how much interest rates have changed on the different parts of the yield curve. You can see in some places where 82 basis points is a lot in any stretch, but when you start with a basis of 75, it actually increased over 100%. When you look at the 10-year, where we were at 175, we increased it by a point and an eighth approximately. Huge increases. The 10-year is what tends to drive the mortgage rates, and you saw a big increase in the cost of funds for people that are out there financing mortgages. We tend to borrow more in the 20-year range as an average. We, at one point in time where we had to do a lot of back-end financing because we didn't have the revenues coming in, it was closer to 28, 30 year. Now those rates that I showed you were actually based on a AAA scale. The MDX cost of funds is actually higher than the MMD rates. MMD is based on a AAA. We want to make sure that you understand this spread right here between these two lines is the cost to terminate the swaps. If we were able to magically get to a AAA level, then our cost to terminate the swaps would be break even. We'd have some issuance costs, but that would be it. But that is the credit spread that widened because of the bankruptcy in Detroit.
Right.
And then finally, this one point, I just want to show you, we were very, very low before. When you take a look at historical averages, we are now back up to where the 10-year average is, which is not a bad rate. I just want to make sure everyone understands it's not a horrible rate, it's just not the greatest rate. And we're still quite a ways away. We're over 60 basis points from a 20-year average. So
It's very, very instructive, and I think very clear.
The key to all of this data is that we're going to have a lot of analysis to be done on where we are with respect to our funding, where we need to be with respect to the work project that we have ahead of our work plan that we have of us, and whether we should borrow in excess of need at this time for future needs, and how that balances with possible higher rates down the line.
Mr. Treasurer, we're going to be looking to you for guidance, of course, and to Randy and Southwest, but my personal opinion, and I follow this very, very closely, I just want to say that I concur with you. The time is of the essence. Mm-hmm. In effect, and this is not in any way criticism that we lost 2 months, but the fact is that we're not 2 months. We're really 6 months. If we had started this whole process 6 months ago, I think we would have been way ahead. But if we don't start it, if we don't go to market soon, and by that I mean by the end of the year, I think if we go into next year, it's going to be very, very expensive. And I think it's just going to keep on going up. And by the way, in addition to that, we just saw this week what's happening. We saw it at the Ops Committee. What's happening to bid contracts? They're just going right up, just like interest is going up. So we may be just in the nick of time. I'm not sure. I hope that we'll make it, but I think time is of the essence in all of this.
Need we would go to market with, and how that would impact us over time, as opposed to possibly experiencing much higher rates down the line for a 20-year borrowing.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments, Carlos?
No.
All right, we're now in the committee reports. I think the Operations Committee is what we're going to get into in a moment, is the agenda for today. So we're now into items 8A. Mr. Director, Executive Director.
Ms. Leslie will read it into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 8A is MDX Work Program for Design Build Services for the State Road 874 Ramp Connector. This is an approval of the First Amendment to the locally funded agreement to actually reduce the project cost. And Alfred, I think maybe you can take that since Francine's not here.
Yes, Mr. Chair, board members. This is the design build services for the 874 ramp connector, First Amendment, to the LFA, or the locally funded agreement. The reduction is a total amount of $11,289,372.04. I apologize, the agenda says $375, it is actually $372. What is in your agenda item report is correct. Bids have come in for this project for the MDX portion of the work at 50% savings, so the projected $26 million bid came in at $13 million. We're seeking a reduction. It still allows for a contingency within the project cost. The payout curve, or the payout schedule for the payments are seen in the Exhibit B of the payment schedule in the back of the package. First payment of $5 million is due 60 days after notice to proceed, and then two $5 million payments on the first and second anniversary dates, and a final closeout payment up to an upper limiting amount of $3,136,500, or depending where the actual cost finishes at a number below that number.
Questions? This was completely aired at the Ops Committee, and this is just one more indication of why, when you piggyback on existing FDOT work, and we use the expertise of people that are already on the job, and it's a design built, that these savings can come about. So congratulations to all, and is there a motion on item 8A?
I will move it.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're now on B.
Mr. Chair, item B is MDX procurement contract for PD&E services for the State Road 836 Southwest extension from Northwest 137th Avenue to Southwest 136th Street. This was endorsed by the Operations Committee on July 26th, and this is an approval on the negotiated contract with Stantec Consulting Services.
All right. Alfred?
Mr. Chair, board members, this is an upper limiting amount contract of $6,770,627.16. The Stantec did acquire C3TS, which was the selected firm, and at the end of last year, we therefore renegotiated with Stantec the small and local business participation, and they are meeting the small and local business participation requirements on the contract in the base services as well as the optional services, as indicated in the small and local business requirements section of the AIR. The contract term is for 60 months. The total cost of the base services is $6.1 million, and the optional services amounts to $653,000, which are contingent upon MDX approval for legal opinions, data collection, traffic analysis, geotechnical coordination, value engineering, social cultural impacts, and additional survey or geotechnical support as needed. The project is budgeted for in the 5-year work program. The engineer's estimate of this project was $7.1 million, and we came in at a negotiated amount of $6.77 million.
Questions? Moved by Mr. Weinberg. Second. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Fernandez Guzman. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It carries. We're on C.
Item 8C is MDX procurement contract for construction services for State Road 112, open road tolling, off-system signing. This contract was endorsed by the Operations Committee on July 26th to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, World Fiber Technologies Incorporated.
All right. Alfred?
Mr. Chair, board members, the lowest bid came in from World Fiber Technology at $3,410,460.55 over the second place bidder of Florida Safety Contractors of $3.438 million. The bid analysis was, staff performed a bid compliance review, which was performed, and the bid is responsive and responsible bid. The engineer's estimate is $2.47 million, so this bid did come in above that, about $1 million. As you can see inside the bid analysis, there is different reasons for that, but significant, about 70% of the total increase. And as you even just heard what Randy mentioned, Lately, in the past month or two, we have seen a significant spike, especially in steel prices. So 70% of what's coming in the latest bids is a significant spike in steel prices. And that's been what comprised most of the amount of overage on this bid. You can see in page 2 of 4 on the bid analysis what caused a lot of those increases. As far as the work program, we have a $2.47 million budget. We'd have to pull $940,000 from the contingency funds within the work program.
Questions? All right, is there a motion? Moved. Is there a second? Second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We're on item D.
Item D is procurement for the construction services for State Road 112 infrastructure modifications for open road tolling and miscellaneous improvements. This was endorsed by the Operations Committee on July 26 to approve the contract award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Halley Engineering Contractors Incorporated.
Alfred?
Halley Engineering Contractors came in as the lowest responsive and responsible bid at $15,633,796.77. The second place bid was Community Asphalt Corporation at $18.036 million. This bid is within 7.1% of the engineer's estimate, which is a reasonable, acceptable variance. There are various reasons as far as the overages are concerned, although most of the actual bids are within the norm. Clearing and grubbing did come in over, and there are a few different reasons that this is over the engineer's estimate. However, an updated engineer estimate was done this month, and it actually goes over the $15.6 million bid, and we're at 15.9 based on latest FDOT pricing. Staff recommends moving forward on this bid. The project itself is budgeted for in the work program at 14.547. We'd have to pull 1.031 million from the contingency funds.
Questions? Ms. Gutierrez makes a motion. Who seconds? Oh, questions. Go ahead.
When was the last engineer's estimate done on this particular project?
I believe it was done towards the beginning of the year, when it was the end of the year. And the most recent one was done this month. And the latest FDOT pricing puts if we were to do a new estimate based on the new numbers, at 15.9 million.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Weinberg. Further discussion? Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It carries unanimously. We're at item E. Helen? I'm sorry, Pam.
I'll be quick. Item 80 is for MDX work program number, series of numbers. This is for CEI services for the State Road 112 infrastructure modifications for the civil work that you just approved. This was endorsed by the Operations Committee on July 26th. And again, this is to approve the Technical Evaluation Committee selection of the #1 ranked firm and to go into contract negotiations with that firm.
All right. Helen, I'm sorry, Helen.
Yes, sir. This was a qualification-based selection for construction engineering and inspection services of the construction project that was just approved. The Technical Evaluation Committee did meet in July 22nd and evaluated 4 proposals received from A Square Group, AMP and Garnet Fleming Joint Venture, Metric Engineering, and New Millennium Engineering, Inc. The scores submitted by the Technical Evaluation Committee and endorsed by the Operations Committee ranks A Square Group as the #1 ranked firm. There is a 15% small business participation requirement and 8% local business participation requirement in this contract. The contract term would be for approximately 570 calendar days, but it's actually tied to the completion of the construction project, and the engineer's estimate is $2.4 million. Staff, if the board approves this selection, staff will go ahead and negotiate a contract with the selected firm.
Questions? Is there a motion? Moved by Gutierrez, second by Weinberg. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. We're on item number F.
Item F is for the renewal and for a 12-month period of the MDX Toll Enforcement Center contract for support services with Faneuil Inc. And this would go through the period of June 30th, 2015, with the related contract amount increase for that period. I think
All right,
Steve will take
Steve.
this.
Mr. Chair, board members, this is supplemental agreement number 4 for the contract, and staff is asking for an extension of the term for 12 months to June 30th, 2015, with the contract increase of 1.4 million. That 1.4 million is broken down into 2 years, FY14 and FY15. The current contract ends at the end of FY14. That's why we're only asking for an additional 1-year extension of time. Through the disentanglement period, where we're transitioning away from ETC to a new back office function, the functionality that was included was image review, toll by plate, SunPass transaction processing, account management, uniform traffic citation processing, and customer service. What this supplemental agreement is asking is to staff a customer service team that will allow us to continue to provide the customer service requirements of our legacy system, as well as meeting the needs for the ORT as we bring in 836 and 112. This expectation is a sunset this need when we transition to the statewide customer service center in 2015.
All right, questions? If not,
Only
there is
one
a question. Go
Only
ahead.
one question. If time were not to be the appropriate extension on this, if we were to go beyond this time frame, what are the plans beyond that?
We would most likely come back for a supplemental agreement number 5 to, you're saying is if time was not the issue?
No, if we cannot complete what we are planning within the allotted time, and this needs to come back to us, is the plan to bring an extension back or to rebid this?
It would probably come back to a time extension. This particular contract that we have with Faneuil was a contract that was entered into in 2009. At that point, we piggybacked on a state contract. The state, in the interim between 2009 and now, actually threw all their contracts out and had them rebid. So it came back actually better. Faneuil, in the piggyback process, allowed us to capitalize on the lower reduction. So in essence, that contract has been rebid already.
If I may, Mr. Treasurer, if this is a service that we want to continue with, even when this particular issue is sunsetted, when we go to the centralized back room, my recommendation to the board will be to compete it as an MDX contract, and we've had that conversation. But for now, Mr. Andrick was correct. It was recompeted by the state, and we're taking advantage of the recompete.
All right, Mr. Holland?
I guess the concern that I have is if the current contract doesn't end until next year, 2014, is there an urgency as to why we have to take up this extension right now and maybe not 6 months from now when we might have a better feel for whether or not we're going to be fully compliant by 2/15 or later?
Mr. Executive Director?
Mr. Andrew, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, actually, this is a not to exceed amount, so no monies will be paid unless MDX decides that this is the move to take. I think the contract also, I'm sure the contract allows us an out. So in 6 months from now, if we see that we're in a better position to re-procure this, we have the out to do that. But this is at a not to exceed amount. Doesn't mean we're expecting to spend it all. It's an estimate.
And are you saying on the record that you don't think if you re-procured it now through 15 and possibly even beyond an option period, and just in case you're not done by June 15th, that you could not get better numbers?
I don't think so. Not at the rate that we got, that the state was able to finalize with Faneuil. Faneuil was the current contractor for the state. The state said, go re-procure everything. And I think this was done in 2011. Faneuil won the contract again and actually came in at lower rates. So the expectation would be that, we're capitalizing on that. my feeling is that we're getting a good deal. Yes, sir.
Or further questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Seconded by Ms. Smith-Fano. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're on item, there's one opposed. Mr. Holland, let the record show that Mr. Holland is opposed. We're on item number G.
Mr. Chair, item G is a renewal for contracts for inspection and reporting services for MDX structures with two different firms, one Marlin Engineering Incorporated and one Trans Systems Corporation Consultants, and this is for a 2-year period, which fits into the federal cycle that we're required to do structures inspection.
Alfred?
Mr. Chair, board members, what I'd like to add on this item is related to the negotiated rates on the original contract term are the same as the 2003 FDOT contract rates. They have not, the original contract that this board approved did not include escalations back then, and both firms, both Marlin and Trans Systems, have agreed to continue without escalation for this extension. The contract amount shall not exceed $500,000 for the 2-year term, so a total of $1 million for both contracts for the 2-year term. Work is only assigned on an as-needed basis, and no work is guaranteed to the consultants. Both firms' evaluations for performance are attached. It is important also to note that the small business participation was not required on this contract. However, Marlin committed to a 10% small business participation and Trans Systems 15%. Both firms have met the requirements. In addition to that, Marlin has now become a certified small business and will count towards 50% of that small business commitment. So we have a national firm of Trans Systems and a local firm of Marlin Engineering that both have performed well. The fiscal impact is actually, this is approved on the operating budget every year by the board on the operating budget. This is not a work program budget.
There's a motion by Ms. Gutierrez. Is there a second by Ms. Weinberg? We're all set. We're, all those in favor for G, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So let the record reflect it was unanimous. We're on item H.
Item H, Mr. Chair, is contract number RFP, excuse me, let me back up. This is the 2014-2018 5-year work program. This is an administrative amendment to the previously approved 5-year work program, and Alfred can speak to the details on this.
Yes, this is to remove the 3 projects, 122, 23, and 24, from the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Plan, and place them in the Capital Improvement Plan as done at the MPO. Staff has made this change to the MPO-approved TIP, excuse me, and this is just basically an administrative amendment to fall in line. The total work program cost of the TIP, CIP, and R&R program does not change. That number remains at $869.3 million.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? We're on item H. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes. We're now on item I.
Item I, Mr. Chair, is for non-toll revenue strategic consulting services. This item was endorsed by the Operations Committee on July 26th, and this is a contract with Travelers Marketing, LLC.
All right, Francine?
I'll try and be quick. This is a 2-part approval process. There are some non-contractual compliance issues that have been endorsed for approval by OPS but need to be approved by this board. The first is the submittal of the implementation plan. There was some delay in getting that done, and that was due to really discussions that All Vision was having with staff, making sure that we were comfortable with the details of the implementation plan. The second non-compliance scope element that needs to be approved by this board is the submittal of Travelers as the sole supplier of the marketing services that are involved in the contract. So before we move on, I think, to the agreement, I think you first have to approve the non-compliance.
So we have two motions. The first one is to the non-compliance portion. Are there any questions as to that? Is there a motion? Non-compliance, that, in other words, that Travelers was the sole bidder.
There were two non-compliant scope issues, one on submission implementation plan and only submitting travelers as the marketing group.
Well, so what are we voting on now? First travelers or the other the other way around?
We can do both. They're both
Okay.
non-compliant, so we just take one at a time if you
All
want
right,
to.
just to keep it simple, since I said travelers, let's do that one first. Go
Quick
ahead,
question.
questions?
I apologize, Mr. Chair. As it relates to the non-compliant issue, were they material in any way?
No. They were technically not compliant because the scope required them to submit, for example, with the travelers, they had to provide 3 providers. They only provided 1, but they also had the option of providing the 1, but they had to tell us why. And so All Vision's position was that Travelers was the only company that successfully implemented this a program like the one we're asking to do.
Successfully implements it in many places around the nation.
With other state
and they're the
entities,
only
too.
ones that do that.
Exactly.
Friday, I forget the name of the gentleman who was on for
Sam was here.
during our July 26th operations meeting. It's not that they were the only game in town, it's that they were the only one All Vision was comfortable recommending to us.
Because of their success in implementing a program like
Right,
this.
but I just want to make sure that that was
Let
the
the
reason. They were the
record
only ones
stand.
that were comfortable recommending to us, not that they're the only
Right.
game in town.
Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Further discussion on the travelers portion of the non-compliance. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, now on the other portion of it. Restate that
So the other
again.
non-compliance is the implementation, the untimely submittal of the implementation plan, and that, again, was due to discussions with
Yeah.
staff.
Any questions on that? If not, is there a motion? Moved by Gutierrez, second by Fernandez Guzman. Further discussion? Question. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you. Ms. Stillman, what was the last thing you just said? It was delayed because of?
They needed to, under the terms of the contract, they needed to submit an implementation plan 60 days after the board approved their assessment. It took longer than that. But part of that was because when they submitted documents, it wasn't what we thought was implementation plan. We made them go back and do it again and correct it. So they did finally submit an implementation plan that we were comfortable with, and that was in February, and that was the one that this agreement's based on.
Okay, thank you.
Ready to vote? All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Now we need to vote on the whole item. Is that correct?
Is there any discussion or questions about the agreement? If not,
So we need to, is there a motion on item I? Been moved by Gutierrez, and second by Fernandez Guzman. Is there further discussion?
I wanted to say something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to say something for the record because, you know, it needs to be said. This type of procurement, this type of contracting, marketing services, a unique and specialty. This is not a regular ad agency. This is not a regular PR agency. This is a very unique form of marketing services that procures sponsorships, branding, naming rights for government entities and so on and so forth. So we may think that it's, you know, everybody can do this, but not everybody can do it right. And that's why these people are so specialized in what they do.
Travelers.
Travelers,
Right.
correct.
All right, further discussion. We're now voting on item I with the 2 exceptions previously approved.
Chair? Questions. I know that we're going to have an ability to further have input into the implementation plan, right? So we have to approve all of them. For the record, I want to make sure that we pay attention, particularly to the website. You know, they're proposing a website, and then they'll be using our website to leapfrog into another website, and I think there's some issues there that I think need to be addressed, and that is, where are you taking me, what are you selling me, and are we benefiting from that? So I want to put it for the record that when we're doing the implementation, that we pay particular attention to that.
Good point.
Because our brand is very important, and once you click on ours, and we don't know where it ends up, so I want to make sure that for the record we do that. I'll leave it at that for now. I think we're going to have a lot of say in the implementation, and the Mr. Chairman, the advertising policies, which we have to address. Obviously, before we approve this implementation plan, for general purposes, not just for this contract, we need to have advertising policies in place.
Right.
said that.
Approval, yes. Ms. Gutierrez did make a point to say that when I yielded the mic to, but yeah, that is very critical that we do that as we go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wait, hold on. Ms. Gutierrez is next, and then you.
Thank you. Very important. I've said that since we've started to talk about this particular contract and the kind of endeavor that we're going after to achieve non-toll revenues. I think it may be prudent for us to quickly say that off the table should be the website. Advertising should not be allowed on our website, given that this is an agency of the state, and also the information that is on our website is of utmost importance, and we should not be receiving advertising. I mean, I think we need to be cautioned. So right now, I would say if we want to reconsider putting it back in, maybe we can at a later date, but maybe today we exclude it.
Mr. Fernandez-Guzman.
Actually, Rick, thank you for bringing up that point, because I have an issue now that we talk about this, about the security of that website and where that website from the other end can be taken. So I would definitely advise to move it off the table.
All right, so then to do this properly, there has to be a motion by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. Fernandez-Guzman, to amend this contract so as to take the website advertisement off this particular contract, and you can come back if that's the case. Is that all right with you, Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Executive
Chairman and
Director?
board members, we will develop a policy through the cycle. We will identify the risks
Okay.
and opportunities, and we'll bring them back to you
All right.
for implementation.
We now have a motion to amend is the proper way to do this, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The motion on the floor is that you would accept the contract with the amendment that there would be no
Okay, so in other words, we only
authorization
have one vote. So in other
website.
words, the motion is to accept the contract, the amendment that was stated into the record. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So aye passes unanimously. We're now on item J, which is the last item on the agenda. We have 1 minute before we hit the magic time of 6 o'clock.
Mr. Chair, item 8J is for the procurement of software and implementation and maintenance of an enterprise resource planning system. This is a fixed cost item, and it is a cooperative purchase agreement with Infor US Inc., and I'll turn it over to Ms. Cordero to give you the particulars on this.
Helen?
Thank you, sir. This is a piggyback contract with Infor, a request to approve it, piggyback contract with Infor Software for an implementation and maintenance of the enterprise resource planning for finance, contract administration, and HR functionalities. This item was endorsed by both the Budget and Finance and the Operations Committee. This is to replace the current finance management system that we have in place. The cost for the implementation in the software is $1.6 million, and after that, there will be an average of $86,000 a year for maintenance cost of the software.
Questions? All right, is there a motion on item J? By Holland, second by Smith Final. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, as I spoken in previously committee, I have great respect, and staff has been very patient in answering all my questions, and I have total confidence in what they're recommending. But from a philosophical perspective, I'll be voting no against this item strictly on the fact that it's a piggyback contract, and we don't know the true cost of what we could get out there if we were to put this to an RFP. So for those reasons, I will be voting against this.
Okay. Further discussion? Any other questions? This has been moved, has it? Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was moved by Holland, second by Smith Final. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record reflect that there was one no. All right, we're now on the chair's comments, and I have just two very quick things that I want to say. Number one, on August 15th, there will be a meeting in Tallahassee on the 14th and the 15th of the Florida Transportation Commission. And the reason why that becomes very important is because the state of Oregon has now passed and is the first state of the union that has passed a new system where instead of gasoline taxes, they're headed in the direction of mileage-based payments. It is a very small step because it's only only 5,000 test of 5,000 automobiles in Oregon, but I think it's going to be a major breakthrough. And now the state of Washington, Minneapolis, and others are following that example. The governor and the secretary of the Department of Transportation in Florida are interested in keeping a close watch on this. The legislature is not overly enthused about this idea, but I think they'll be warming up to it as this catches on in the state. I will be sending to you in the next couple of days an article that came out in the Wall Street Journal, which of last Saturday, Sunday, which says dueling bills show divide over the budget. And if you read it carefully, what it basically says is that the House is trying to reduce the amount of money available for transportation in a pretty severe manner. And if that were to happen, of course, I mean, we're already in deep trouble, but we'll be in deeper trouble. So I think this is a very important step in the nation, which shows a little light at the end of the tunnel. And unfortunately, that coincides, Pam, with the party that we're having for you, and I apologize for not being present, and I will be here in spirit. Secondly, even though the executive director did not get into the details, because I don't think it's really appropriate since we're still in the midst of negotiations, the MAKE contract is moving along very well, and thanks to the cooperation of both Gus Pago and his staff and Javier Rodriguez and his staff, we're almost there. In addition to that, we also have, as you saw by the very good report made by our capable treasurer and First Southwest, the clock is ticking in a not a favorable way on interests going up. So time is of the essence in our choosing a financial team. So it may be that we may have to call a meeting before our next meeting. Our next meeting, as you all know, will be October, the first day of October, right? Since tomorrow is the last day of July, we have August and September. That's over 60 days without meeting, and we may have to have a meeting. The reason why we're not meeting as we normally would in September is because we have the IBTTA conference, and some of us, and our executive director, who is soon to be the chairman of IBTTA, has to be there. And but we may have to call a meeting before the IBTTA conference, which is September the 25th. So somewhere around the 15th or the 16th or the 17th, depending on our legal positions, our financial advisors, and our committees, and all the other things that get into this, we may have to have a meeting. And I'm just giving you a heads up on it. And that's it for me. So
one item, Mr. Chair, that I wanted to mention, just call attention to in your packet, that there is a letter that we wanted you to be aware that our newest member, Ms. Weinberg, was asked by Senator Patrick Leahy to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee on the Voting Rights Act. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that she had done that. So we're very honored that she's participating in that.
The last and the most pleasant subject before us is my officially welcoming our newest member. It helps that she's Puerto Rican, but it also helps that she's absolutely brilliant. She's very knowledgeable in the construction world. She works officially for a French company that just finished an unbelievable job in digging a tunnel to our port. And they are so pleased with her that she sometimes is not only the face of the company, but she puts on a hard hat and boots and gets into a little car and takes VIPs through the tunnel. And she's also an active member of the Republican Party. She's also a very active counselor in Aventura, where everybody has the highest opinion of her. So welcome, Luz, to MDX.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really a pleasure to be serving here.
Right,
It's one of my, it's one of my newest hats. And it's a privilege to be serving with such great people.
We're honored to have you here. So is there a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion?
It's been moved, and is there a second? So we stand adjourned at 6:07.